Hi, it's Wayne O'Keefe, and I'm going to be fishing down at in the Mornington Peninsula today. Now, unfortunately, I've only got down here fairly late. It's been a very windy day, and it's just about 4:15 now. So by the time I get to the water, I'm not far away. It's probably going to be about 4:30 or so, and it'll get dark at about 6. So I've got about an hour and a half. But I was really desperate to try something. In a previous video, what I'd done is I caught a carp, and I took the flesh off and I cooked some of it. And so I showed how I had done that. It tasted pretty good, but there's a lot of flesh on the carp that you can't eat. So there's the red flesh, which that doesn't have much. Oh no, it tastes terrible. It tastes like mud actually, which you can't use for that. But I wanted to use something. I wanted to use it for something else. So what I've done today is I took a fillet of carp, just a small one. I cut it into pieces, or I started off at least with the single fillet, about the size of your hand, and I put that into salt. So I put a container, holes at the base, which is very important, put salt on the base, fish in the middle, salt on the top, so fully covered. Now the reason for the holes in the bottom is that when you first put the fish flesh into that salt, it gives off a lot of moisture, so that runs away. So you've got to let that run out so that you can keep it dry and the salt can continue to draw out the moisture. These pieces here now have very dry. It was in there for about 4 days. They've still got some residual salt on them, but I'll do more than that when I fish today. I will put them in a bit of tuna oil and a little bit of powdered garlic on top of that. So I want to actually create the oils, the scents, and just see if I can use this as a bait. I'm really interested to see if it has any other use other than just fertilizer. So what I'll be doing is I'm going to go right down now. I'm going to use my standard setup, which will be a burley cage, a running burley cage, a size 6 hook or so, and a piece of this carp, and see how it goes. It will be very interesting. I have no high expectations, but it would be great to be able to get a fish on this stuff, because if we could use it for something else, or we could use carp for anything, then we always have a chance of getting more of them out of the water and making them something useful rather than something we just basically want to bury. Let's see how we go. Pretty rough. As you can hear, late evening, tide's coming in. Oh my goodness, there's weed everywhere. It's very difficult conditions. This gives you an idea of the size. Really nice size. Yellow eye mummer here. On a piece of carp. Well, I'm pretty happy about that. Well, it's getting dark, but that is not stopping the fish that give them enough. I can't believe it's so mullet, and a good size one as well. So same bait. Well, I'm back, and it was just the most interesting session. It was a bit uncomfortable at times because the wind was so heavy, but I actually caught fish on that carp. I'm just astounded. What happened is I caught that small salmon to start with. What had happened originally was I was getting bites, but the wind was so bad that my casting was off. Every time you'd cast, the wind would pick up and drop or redirect the burley cage, the weight, into different spots. So you'd be casting out as far as you could, because I had to get out probably about 30 meters, I would say. So I was trying to cast that any further, and you just had no chance of getting accuracy. But the wind would blow it to the side, or the wind would just drop for a second and it would go straight. Something like that would happen. And then the rod tip and that has been blown about quite a bit. So it was a little bit uncomfortable. So what I found is that if I had to actually hold the rod so that I could actually feel everything through it, and I had to strike. When I got those mullet, they were not taking the bait and just running off. What they were doing was they were biting it and dropping it. So if you just left your rod there without actually striking when you got that bite, you wouldn't have got the fish. But I found that the mullet were not taking the larger pieces. I had to cut them much smaller, and you know that the mullet's mouth is quite small anyway. But I was really surprised. They took that carp, and what was happening? Certainly the burley was attracting them into the area, but towards the end I was getting quite a few bites. I probably would have stayed a little bit longer, but as it gets dark, there's no street lighting where I was, so it was going to get dark enough that I just couldn't see it all. But imagine that, carp working well. Now, I must say that there was a couple of factors working in my favour. There was the tide was coming in, that the winds, although uncomfortable, sometimes can bring the fish in because they churn the water up, they make it a bit coloured, and the fish then feel safe in that type of thing and will come in a bit closer. I think there had been a bit of a low pressure system which had just dropped and the pressure was rising, and I think that also brought the fish on the bite. So yes, that was working in my favour, but to catch them on the carp was just another surprise. The other thing I found about the carp flesh was once it had been in the water for a little while, even though it had dehydrated, hard to say, it dehydrated and it shrunk because it probably lost about half, even more, of its actual mass as the fluid had gone, or as all the moisture had been drawn out. It rehydrated a little bit in the water and got a little bit softer. But the great thing was it made it really quite tough. So it was a bait that you could have small fish attacking all the time and they wouldn't get it off, you know. That is great in those waters because I had actually tried a bit of prawn as well and that just got ripped straight off. So that worked very well. So you knew that you could get bites continuously, and it was only when a fish actually, you know, put its mouth right over the hook and you were able to strike, you'd get them in. Nothing was going to... Now, if anybody has done the same type of thing, if they've used carp for anything in fishing, please let me know. Just basically put a comment down below. Or if you've used other fish, if you've dried other baits and used those effectively, let me know, because I think this is a great resource we could have that people could share in their fishing. It just means that if you dry this out, it has such a long shelf life. And that is something you could always have in your fishing tackle box, you know, because I know that some of the dried baits can last for months. So comment below, and if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe.